The wedding dress hung in my closet like a ghost, tags still attached, dreams still clinging to its lace. I had believed his tears when he proposed, believed his whispered promises of forever. But when I discovered he was planning a different forever with my own sister, I realized that some betrayals deserve a gift that keeps on giving. I never thought my life would become a cautionary tale about trust, family, and the devastating power of betrayal. My name is Emily, and this is the story of how the two people I loved most in the world chose each other over me, and how I chose truth over silence. For years. That is how long Nathan and I had been together when he got down on one knee in the middle of Central Park, tears streaming down his face as he stammered through the most beautiful proposal I had ever heard. The ring was perfect, a vintage emerald-cut diamond that caught the autumn light like captured starfire. He had remembered every detail I had ever mentioned about my dream ring, down to the delicate filigree work on the band. "I have waited my whole life for you," he whispered, his voice breaking with emotion. "You are my everything, Emily. My beginning and my end." I said yes through my own tears, feeling like the luckiest woman alive. We were supposed to be married in 6 months. The venue was booked, the invitations ordered, the flowers chosen. I had tried on my dress a dozen times, each fitting making everything feel more real, more permanent. Nathan would sit outside the bridal shop, grinning like a fool every time I emerged for his opinion. "You are going to be the most beautiful bride," he would say, and I believed him completely. Nathan was everything I thought I wanted in a partner. Charming without being fake, successful without being arrogant, kind to service workers and patient with my elderly grandmother. He remembered my coffee order, knew when I needed space after a difficult day at work, and could make me laugh until my sides hurt. My parents adored him, constantly commenting on how lucky I was to have found such a wonderful man. "He is a keeper," my mother would say, beaming whenever Nathan helped clear the dinner table or fixed a leaky faucet without being asked. "You two are perfect together." Even my sister Sophie seemed to approve, though she had always been somewhat distant when it came to my relationships. Sophie was 26 to my 28, but she had always been the golden child in our family, where I was average height with brown hair, and what my mother diplomatically called striking features. Sophie was tall, blonde, and genuinely stunning. She had the kind of beauty that made people stop mid-sentence when she walked into a room. Growing up, I had learned to accept being the responsible older sister, while Sophie got to be the dazzling younger one. She was naturally gifted at everything she tried: dance, academics, social situations. I worked hard for good grades while hers came effortlessly. I struggled through awkward teenage years while she glided through them like a swan. But I thought I had found my place, my happiness with Nathan. Finally, I had something that was mine alone, something beautiful and precious that I did not have to share or compare. I should have known better. The first crack in my perfect reality came exactly 2 weeks before the wedding. Nathan had been acting strange for days, distant, distracted, avoiding eye contact during conversations. I attributed it to wedding stress, even though he had seemed more excited than nervous throughout our entire engagement. He asked me to meet him at our favorite coffee shop, the little place where we had our first official date. I arrived early, my stomach churning with an inexplicable sense of dread. When Nathan walked in, his face was pale and drawn, nothing like the excited groom-to-be I expected to see. "We need to talk," he said, and those 4 words felt like ice water in my veins. He could not look at me as he spoke. He needed time to think. He was confused about his feelings. He was not sure he was ready for marriage. The words poured out of him like he had rehearsed them, each one landing like a physical blow. "I think we should postpone the wedding," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. I stared at him in shock, my brain struggling to process what he was saying. Postpone? 2 weeks before our wedding day. After 4 years together, after all the planning and dreaming and building a life together? "What are you talking about?" I managed to ask, my voice cracking. "Nathan, we are getting married in 2 weeks. Everything is planned, everyone is coming. What do you mean you are confused?" He finally looked at me then, and what I saw in his eyes made my blood freeze. Guilt. Not confusion, not fear, guilt. The kind of guilt that comes from knowing you have already made your choice and hurt someone in the process. "I just need some time," he repeated, reaching across the table as if to take my hand. I pulled away instinctively. This is not about you, Emily. You are amazing. You are perfect. I am the problem here. I begged him to explain. I cried, right there in the coffee shop where we had fallen in love, pleading with him to help me understand what had changed. But he just kept shaking his head, insisting he needed space to figure things out. Please, I whispered, feeling pathetic but unable to stop myself. Do not do this. We can work through whatever this is. We love each other. I know, he said, and his voice broke a little. I know you love me and I. He stopped swallowing hard. I just need time. I left that coffee shop feeling like I was walking through a nightmare. The man who had proposed to me with tears in his eyes, who had spent 4 years building a future with me, who had kissed me goodbye that very morning like everything was normal. That man had just shattered my world with clinical precision. The next few days passed in a blur of phone calls and cancellations. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the band, everything had to be postponed indefinitely. My mother was sympathetic but practical, helping me make the necessary calls while assuring me that everything would work out. Men get cold feet, she said, rubbing my back as I sobbed into a pile of unused wedding invitations. He just needs a little time to remember how much he loves you. My father was less understanding, muttering about Nathan being a fool and offering to have a word with him. But I asked him not to interfere. Some small, stubborn part of me still believed that Nathan would come to his senses, that he would realize he was making a terrible mistake. Sophie was surprisingly absent during this crisis. Usually, she would be the first one at my door with ice cream and terrible movies when I was going through a breakup. But she claimed to be busy with work, only sending brief text messages of support. So sorry this is happening, one message read. You deserve better. Take care of yourself, said another. This too shall pass. Her distance stung, but I was too wrapped up in my own grief to think much about it. I needed my sister, needed her shoulder to cry on and her fierce loyalty to help me feel less alone. But she seemed to be pulling away just when I needed her most. 1 week after Nathan had destroyed my life, I decided to drive by his apartment. I told myself I just wanted to see if he was okay, if he was taking care of himself. Really, I was hoping to catch a glimpse of him, to see some sign that he was as miserable as I was. His car was not in its usual parking spot, which was not unusual since he traveled for work. But as I sat in my car across the street, feeling pathetic and desperate, my phone buzzed with a notification from Instagram. My heart stopped. It was a photo posted by my sister Sophie. She was on a beach somewhere tropical, her blonde hair glowing in the sunset, wearing a white bikini that made her look like a goddess. She was laughing at something off camera, her head thrown back in pure joy. But it was not just Sophie in the photo. In the background, partially obscured but unmistakably familiar, was Nathan. He was holding a drink, smiling at Sophie with an expression I recognized all too well. The same adoring look he used to give me. My hands shook as I stared at the screen. There had to be an explanation. Maybe it was an old photo. Maybe Nathan had run into Sophie somewhere by coincidence. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me, because I was so desperate to find him. But as I scrolled through Sophie's recent posts, the truth became undeniable. There were more photos from the same trip. Sophie by a pool, Sophie at a restaurant, Sophie walking along the beach. And in several of them, Nathan was there. Not in the foreground, not tagged, but there nonetheless. They were together. My sister and my fiancé were together, on what looked like a romantic vacation. While I was at home grieving the loss of my future, the phone slipped from my numb fingers and clattered to the floor of my car. I could not breathe. The world seemed to tilt on its axis as the full magnitude of the betrayal hit me. It was not just that Nathan had left me. He had left me for my own sister. I do not remember driving home. I do not remember walking into my apartment or collapsing on my couch. I only remember the sound of my own keening wail. A sound I did not even recognize as coming from me. They had planned this. While I was tasting cakes and addressing invitations, while I was dreaming of our future together, they were planning to destroy everything I held dear. The man who had proposed to me with tears in his eyes had been lying to my face for God knows how long. And Sophie, my sister, my family, the person who was supposed to love me unconditionally, had betrayed me in the most devastating way possible. I called Nathan immediately, my rage overriding my heartbreak. He did not answer. I called again and again, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails. How could you do this to me? I screamed into the phone. How could you both do this to me? When he finally called back 3 hours later, his voice was calm and controlled. Emily, I can explain. Explain what? That you are on vacation with my sister, while I am here canceling our wedding. There was a long pause. It is not what you think. Really? Because what I think is that you are a lying, cheating piece of garbage who has been screwing my sister behind my back. Please enlighten me about what it actually is. Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, almost pitying. Emily, I never meant for this to happen. Sophie and we just connected. It was not planned. It just happened. It just happened? I repeated, my voice rising to a shriek. You just happened to fall in love with my sister? You just happened to plan a romantic getaway while leaving me to deal with the fallout of our canceled wedding. I was trying to figure out my feelings, he said. I was trying to do the right thing. The right thing would have been to break up with me before you started pursuing my sister. You are right, he said quietly. I handled this terribly. I was a coward. But Emily, I cannot help how I feel. I cannot help that I have fallen in love with Sophie. Those words hit me like a physical blow. Fallen in love with Sophie. Not attracted to her, not confused by feelings for her, in love with her. While he was engaged to me. How long? I whispered. What? How long have you been in love with my sister while pretending to love me? The silence stretched on so long I thought he had hung up. Finally he spoke. I have had feelings for Sophie for a while. But I fought them. I tried to ignore them because I cared about you. But when she told me she felt the same way. She told you she felt the same way? When? Emily, please do not make this harder than it has to be. When did my sister tell you she was in love with you? Another devastating pause. About 6 months ago. 6 months. 6 months ago, I had been showing Sophie pictures of wedding dresses, asking for her opinion on flowers and venues. 6 months ago, Nathan had been helping me address save the dates. 6 months ago, both of them had been lying to my face while planning to destroy my life. I hung up without another word. The next call I made was to Sophie. Unlike Nathan, she answered immediately. Emily, I was just about to call you. Were you? My voice was eerily calm now, the rage having crystallized into something cold and sharp. Were you going to call me from your romantic vacation with my fiancé? It is not what it looks like. Stop lying to me. I screamed, all the calm evaporating instantly. Just stop lying. I saw the photos, Sophie. I know you are together. I know you have been together for months. She was crying now, or at least pretending to cry. Emily, please listen to me. I never wanted this to happen. I tried to stay away from Nathan. I tried to ignore my feelings. But we could not help it. We are in love. You are in love, I repeated flatly. With my fiancé. While I was planning my wedding to him. I know how this looks. I know how much this must hurt. But Emily, you have to understand. This kind of love does not happen often. What Nathan and I have is special. It is real. And what Nathan and I had was fake. No, that is not what I meant. I meant that sometimes love just finds a way, even when we do not want it to. Love finds a way. As if love was some mystical force that had compelled them to betray me, rather than a series of choices they had made every single day for 6 months. You are my sister, I whispered, and my voice broke on the words. You are supposed to love me. You are supposed to protect me. How could you do this to me? I do love you, she sobbed. I love you so much, Emily. That is why this has been so hard. But I cannot help who I fell in love with. Yes, you can, I shouted. You absolutely can. You could have told me about your feelings. You could have removed yourself from the situation. You could have done anything other than sneak around behind my back for 6 months. You are right, she whispered. I should have handled this differently. But Emily, what is done is done. Nathan and I are together now. I am not going to give him up. The casual cruelty of that statement took my breath away. She was not even asking for forgiveness. She was simply informing me that she had chosen him over me, and expected me to accept it. I will never forgive you for this, I said quietly. Never. Maybe not today, she replied, and I could hear Nathan's voice in the background. But someday you will understand. Someday you will be happy for us. I hung up and immediately blocked both of their numbers. The next few days were a blur of grief and rage. I could not eat, could not sleep, could not concentrate on anything. I called in sick to work and barely left my apartment. My mother came by with groceries and worried looks, but even she seemed to be struggling with how to handle the situation. I spoke to Sophie, she said carefully as she put away milk and bread. She explained what happened. She explained how she stole my fiancé. My mother winced. Emily, honey, these things happen sometimes. I know it hurts, but maybe it is for the best. If Nathan was not truly committed to you. Mom, stop. I turned to face her, incredulous. Are you seriously defending them right now? I am not defending anyone. I am just saying that maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Better to find out now than after you were married. A blessing? Mom, my sister destroyed my life. My fiancé left me for her. How is any of this a blessing? She sighed, looking older than I had ever seen her. Sophie did not mean for this to happen, sweetie. Sometimes love just finds a way. There it was again. That phrase that apparently absolved them of all responsibility for their choices. Love just finds a way. And what about my love? I asked bitterly. What about the love I had for Nathan? What about the love I should have been able to count on from my sister? I know you are hurting, my mother said gently. But holding on to anger will not change anything. Sophie is still your sister. Nathan. Well, maybe Nathan was not the right man for you after all. I stared at my mother in disbelief. Even she was choosing them over me. Even my own mother was asking me to swallow this betrayal and pretend it was somehow for the best. Get out, I said quietly. Emily, get out of my apartment. Now. She left, but not before giving me a look that somehow managed to be both pitying and disappointed. As if I was the one behaving unreasonably. Over the next few weeks, the rest of my family's reaction became clear. My father was angry on my behalf but ultimately expected me to be the bigger person. My aunt sent a card saying that everything happens for a reason. My cousins posted supportive messages on social media, while simultaneously liking Sophie's vacation photos. I was being erased. The victim of the betrayal was expected to disappear quietly, so that everyone else could feel comfortable with Sophie and Nathan's relationship. 3 months after Nathan shattered my world, I received a wedding invitation in the mail. Elegant cardstock, beautiful calligraphy. A photo of the happy couple gazing into each other's eyes on a beach. Sophie and Nathan were getting married. The invitation was addressed only to me, not to a guest. They expected me to come alone to watch them celebrate their betrayal. The wedding was planned for just 4 months after their engagement. A much shorter timeline than Nathan and I had taken. Apparently, when you are truly in love, you do not need time to plan. I stared at the invitation for a long time, feeling something cold and calculating settle in my chest. They wanted to erase me, to rewrite history so that their love story was pure and romantic instead of built on lies and betrayal. They wanted me to disappear quietly, to fade into the background like a minor character in their epic romance. But I was not going to disappear. I was not going to let them rewrite history. And I was not going to let them have their perfect wedding without consequences. I RSVP'd that I would not be attending, but I also mentioned that I would be sending a gift. Over the next month, I gathered evidence. Nathan had been sloppy in his betrayal, perhaps because he had assumed I would never find out or never fight back. His social media accounts were still partially visible to me, and he had forgotten to unfriend several mutual acquaintances who were more loyal to me than to him. Through these friends, I learned that Nathan's behavior during our relationship had been even worse than I had initially believed. My best friend Claire confided that Nathan had been sending her flirty messages for months, complimenting her appearance and suggesting they grab drinks sometime. The messages had started about a year into our relationship and continued right up until 2 weeks before our canceled wedding. I should have told you, Claire said, her face flushed with guilt. But he always played it off as friendly, and I did not want to cause problems if I was misreading the situation. Can you show me the messages? She handed over her phone reluctantly, and I screenshot everything. Dozens of messages where Nathan called Claire beautiful, suggested secret meetings, and complained about feeling unappreciated in his relationship. Messages where he asked for photos and promised that I would never find out about their conversations. But Claire had not been his only target. Through some careful detective work, I discovered that Nathan had been maintaining inappropriate relationships with several women throughout our 4 years together. A coworker who shared flirty emails, a gym acquaintance who received late-night texts about being lonely, an ex-girlfriend who he had never stopped contacting. Nathan was not a man who had fallen victim to unexpected love. He was a serial cheater who had been betraying me from the beginning. I also hired a private investigator, something I never thought I would do, but the situation called for extreme measures. The investigator confirmed that Nathan and Sophie had been meeting secretly for at least 8 months, not 6. They had been careful, but not careful enough. There were credit card records of hotel rooms, restaurant receipts from romantic dinners, even photos from a weekend getaway they had taken while I was visiting my grandmother in the hospital. But the most damaging evidence came from a source I had not expected. One of Sophie's friends, Jessica, reached out to me through social media. She had been struggling with guilt and finally decided to speak up. "I have something you need to see," she wrote. "We met at a coffee shop across town, somewhere neither Sophie nor Nathan would think to look for me." Jessica was nervous, constantly looking over her shoulder as if she expected them to appear. "I took this video a few weeks ago," she said, sliding her phone across the table. "Sophie does not know I have it." The video was taken at a hotel bar, apparently during Sophie and Nathan's engagement party, a small celebration I had not been invited to. In the video, Nathan was clearly drunk, laughing and talking with a brunette woman I did not recognize. As I watched, he leaned over and kissed her, a long, passionate kiss that left no doubt about his intentions. "Who is she?" I asked. "Her name is Melissa. She works with Nathan. Sophie was in the bathroom when this happened." I stared at the timestamp on the video. It was taken just 10 days before Sophie and Nathan's wedding. "Why are you showing me this?" Jessica shifted uncomfortably. "Because Sophie is my friend, but what they did to you was wrong. And if Nathan is already cheating on her, she deserves to know what kind of man she is marrying." I thanked Jessica and asked her to send me the video. She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Just, do not tell her it came from me, okay?" I promised, though I had no intention of telling Sophie anything directly. By the time Sophie and Nathan's wedding day arrived, I had assembled quite a collection of evidence. Screenshots of Nathan's flirty messages to other women, photos of their secret meetings, credit card receipts proving they had been together much longer than they claimed, and the video of Nathan kissing another woman just days before his wedding. I had also prepared a letter, several pages of carefully crafted truth that laid out exactly what kind of people they were, and what their relationship was really built on. All of this evidence went into a beautifully wrapped gift box, along with a USB drive labeled Wedding Toast. I arranged for the gift to be delivered to the wedding reception venue, with instructions that it should be placed with the other gifts. But I had one more surprise planned. My cousin David had never liked Sophie or Nathan. He thought Sophie was spoiled and manipulative, and he had seen through Nathan's charm from the beginning. When I explained my plan, he was more than happy to help. David worked in event technology and knew how to operate the audio-visual equipment at wedding venues. He volunteered to be my inside man, ensuring that the USB drive would find its way into the presentation system during the reception. On the day of the wedding, I went to a spa. I got a massage, a facial, and my nails done. I wanted to be relaxed and centered for what was about to happen. I was not going to watch their wedding fall apart from some hiding spot like a bitter ex-girlfriend. I was going to be living my best life while the truth finally came to light. David texted me regular updates throughout the day. The ceremony had gone off without a hitch. Sophie looked beautiful in a dress that was remarkably similar to the one I had chosen for my own wedding. Nathan had cried during his vows, just like he had during his proposal to me. The reception was in full swing when David sent the message I had been waiting for. Showtime. I was sitting in a cafe near the spa, sipping herbal tea and reading a book, when my phone started buzzing with notifications. Text messages, social media alerts, missed calls. The digital avalanche that meant my plan had worked. David called me 20 minutes later, laughing so hard he could barely speak. "Emily, it was incredible. I have never seen anything like it." He described the scene for me in vivid detail. The reception had been proceeding normally. Sophie and Nathan had shared their first dance to At Last by Etta James, which had actually been our song, though apparently Sophie did not know that. The guests were eating dinner and making small talk when David announced that the bride and groom had prepared a special presentation for their guests. The lights dimmed, and the large screen at the front of the reception hall came to life. At first, it seemed like a normal wedding slideshow. Photos of Sophie and Nathan together, looking happy and in love. But then the photos changed. Pictures of Nathan and me from our 4-year relationship. Photos from vacations that Nathan had told Sophie he had never taken. Screenshots of his recent messages to other women. Blown up large enough for everyone in the room to read clearly. The room fell silent as the evidence mounted. Nathan's flirty messages to Claire, dated just weeks before his wedding to Sophie. His complaints about feeling unappreciated by his current girlfriend. Me, while simultaneously planning to leave me for my sister. Then came the hotel receipts and credit card statements, proving that Nathan and Sophie had been meeting secretly for 8 months, not the few weeks they had claimed. The slideshow continued with screenshots of Nathan's messages to his ex-girlfriend, sent during his engagement to Sophie. Messages where he complained about being trapped in a relationship he did not want and fantasized about running away together. But the final blow was the video from the hotel bar. Crystal clear footage of Nathan passionately kissing another woman, just 10 days before his wedding, while his bride-to-be was in the bathroom. David said the silence in the room was deafening. 300 wedding guests staring at undeniable proof that the groom was a serial cheater, and the bride was a betrayer who had stolen her sister's fiancé. Sophie had been standing near the head table, probably expecting a sweet montage of their love story. Instead, she watched her new husband's infidelity play out on a giant screen in front of everyone she cared about. She ran from the room sobbing, her beautiful white dress trailing behind her like a ghost. Nathan stood frozen at the head table, his face pale with shock and humiliation. The best part, according to David, was what happened next. Instead of rallying around the couple, half the wedding guests simply left. No explanations, no goodbyes, they just gathered their things and walked out. Among those who left were Nathan's parents, who had always prided themselves on their son's character. Sophie's maid of honor, who had apparently known about some of Nathan's other women, and finally felt free to show her disgust. Even some of my own family members, who had been pressuring me to forgive and forget, seemed shocked by the scope of the betrayal. Those who remained were mostly people who loved drama more than they cared about the truth. Nathan tried to give a speech, to explain himself and salvage the situation. But according to David, he just made things worse. He blamed me for ruining their special day, claimed the evidence was taken out of context, and insisted that his love for Sophie was real even if his methods had been questionable. Sophie eventually returned to the reception, her makeup repaired but her spirit clearly broken. She stood beside Nathan as he continued to dig himself deeper, but David said she looked like she was watching a stranger. The reception limped along for another hour before finally collapsing entirely. The remaining guests drifted away in uncomfortable silence, leaving Sophie and Nathan alone with the catering staff, and a pile of unopened gifts that would probably be returned. I finished my tea and drove home, feeling something I had not experienced in months: peace. Over the next few days, the fallout continued. Social media exploded with commentary about the wedding disaster. Some people condemned me for my public revenge, calling it cruel and vindictive. Others praised me for exposing the truth and refusing to be erased. I did not engage with any of it. I had said what I needed to say through my actions, and I felt no need to justify myself to people who had already chosen sides. Sophie tried to call me repeatedly, but I had blocked her number months ago. She sent emails that I deleted without reading. She even showed up at my apartment once, but I did not answer the door. Nathan attempted to reach out through mutual friends, claiming he wanted to apologize and explain. I had no interest in either his apologies or his explanations. Some betrayals are simply unforgivable. The marriage lasted exactly 6 months. I heard about the divorce through my cousin David, who had maintained contact with some of Sophie's friends. Apparently, the humiliation of the wedding had been just the beginning. Nathan's infidelity continued throughout their brief marriage, and Sophie finally realized that a man who would cheat on his fiancée with her sister was not likely to be faithful to anyone. The divorce was messy and public, with accusations flying in both directions. Sophie accused Nathan of emotional abuse and manipulation. Nathan accused Sophie of being unstable and vindictive. Both of them were probably right. I felt no satisfaction in their misery. By the time their marriage fell apart, I had moved on completely. I was dating someone new, a kind, honest man who treated me with respect and would never dream of betraying me. I had changed jobs, moved to a new apartment, and built a life that had nothing to do with either Sophie or Nathan. The family relationships were more complicated. My parents eventually reached out, offering awkward apologies and admitting that they had handled the situation poorly. My father, in particular, seemed genuinely remorseful about not supporting me from the beginning. "I should have seen what kind of man Nathan really was," he said during one of our tentative reconciliation conversations. "I should have protected you instead of asking you to be understanding." My mother was slower to come around, but she eventually acknowledged that Sophie's behavior had been inexcusable. Still, she hoped that someday Sophie and I could repair our relationship. I had no interest in repairing anything with Sophie. Some betrayals cut too deep to heal, and some relationships are not worth salvaging. Sophie had made her choice when she decided that having Nathan was more important than having me as a sister. I had made my choice when I decided that my peace of mind was more important than maintaining toxic family connections. The last I heard, Sophie was in therapy, trying to understand how she had made such devastating choices. Nathan had moved to another city, presumably to start fresh somewhere his reputation had not preceded him. I genuinely hoped they both found happiness eventually, just not with each other and not at my expense. As for me, I learned valuable lessons about trust, family, and the importance of standing up for yourself. I learned that some people will always choose their own comfort over your pain, and that blood relation does not guarantee loyalty or love. Most importantly, I learned that revenge is not about hurting the people who hurt you. Real revenge is living well, finding peace, and refusing to let their betrayal define your story. Nathan had proposed to me with tears in his eyes and promised me forever. Then he married my sister and broke both of our hearts in the process. But in the end, I was the one who got the last word. I was the one who got to walk away with my dignity intact. I was the one who got to build a new life based on truth instead of lies. And I was the one who got to sleep peacefully at night, knowing that I had chosen justice over silence, truth over family loyalty, and self-respect over keeping the peace. The wedding gift I sent them was not really about destroying their marriage. Their marriage was built on lies and betrayal. It was always going to self-destruct eventually. My gift simply accelerated the inevitable and ensured that the truth came out before more people got hurt. Sometimes the cruelest revenge is simply refusing to let people rewrite history to make themselves feel better about their choices. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is make sure the truth survives, even when everyone else wants to bury it. Nathan thought he could erase me from his story and replace me with my sister. Sophie thought she could steal my life and make everyone forget how she had gotten it. They were both wrong, because in the end, the truth always finds a way, and sometimes it comes gift-wrapped with a bow. Looking back now, I realize that Nathan and Sophie did me the biggest favor of my life, though it certainly did not feel that way at the time. They showed me exactly who they were before I wasted any more years on either of them. They freed me from a marriage that would have been built on lies and a family relationship that was already toxic beneath the surface. The man I am with now, Michael, knows the whole story. He knows about the betrayal, the wedding gift, and the aftermath. His response when I first told him was simple. "Good for you. You deserved better than both of them." Michael would never betray me because he understands that love is not just a feeling. It is a choice you make every single day. He chooses me every morning when he wakes up, every evening when he comes home from work, and every moment in between. That is what real love looks like, not the selfish obsession that Nathan called love. I still have the wedding dress hanging in my closet, though it no longer looks like a ghost to me. Now it represents possibility. Not the future I lost, but the future I am still building. Maybe I will wear it someday, to a wedding that is actually based on truth and commitment. Or maybe I will donate it to someone who needs it more than I do. Either way, it no longer holds any power over me. The scars from that betrayal will always be there, but they have become part of my strength rather than my weakness. I am more careful now about who I trust, more aware of red flags, more willing to speak up when something feels wrong. I have learned to value people who show up for me consistently rather than those who only appear when it is convenient for them. I have also learned that family is not always about blood. My chosen family, friends like Claire and David, my new partner Michael, even some distant relatives who supported me through the worst of it. They are the ones who matter. They are the ones who proved that loyalty and love are not just words, but actions. Sophie tried to reach out one last time about a year after her divorce. She sent a long letter through a mutual friend, full of apologies and regrets. She claimed to understand now how much she had hurt me, how wrong her choices had been. She said she wanted to make amends, to rebuild our relationship. I read the letter once, and then threw it away. Some people believe that forgiveness is always the right choice, that holding on to anger only hurts yourself. But I have learned that there is a difference between forgiveness and enabling. Forgiving someone does not mean you have to let them back into your life to hurt you again. I have forgiven Sophie and Nathan in the sense that I no longer carry active anger toward them. I do not wish them harm or spend my time plotting further revenge. But forgiveness does not mean I have to trust them again, or welcome them back into my life, or pretend their betrayal did not matter. Some betrayals are relationship ending, and that is okay. Not every relationship is worth saving, and not every person deserves infinite chances to prove they have changed. I am happier now than I ever was with Nathan. More at peace than I ever was when Sophie was in my life. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most do us the greatest favor, by showing us what we will not accept, what we will not tolerate, and who we really are when pushed to our limits. Nathan thought he knew me well enough to predict my reaction to his betrayal. He expected me to cry, to beg, to fade quietly into the background while he and Sophie built their new life. He underestimated my strength, my intelligence, and my refusal to be erased. Sophie thought she could rely on family loyalty to protect her from consequences. She thought I would eventually get over it, that blood would be thicker than water, that our relationship would survive anything. She underestimated the depth of her betrayal, and the value of my self-respect. They both learned that I am not the kind of person who disappears quietly when wronged. I am the kind of person who stands up for herself, who demands truth over comfortable lies, who refuses to be anyone's victim. The wedding gift I sent them was really a gift to myself. The gift of justice, of truth, of refusing to be silenced. It was my way of saying that their betrayal mattered, that it had consequences, that they could not simply rewrite history to suit their narrative. Years have passed since that devastating revelation in the coffee shop, since the humiliating wedding reception, since the angry phone calls and blocked numbers. The sharp edges of the pain have worn smooth, though the shape of it remains. I can talk about what happened now without my voice shaking, can tell the story without reliving every emotion. But I never forget the lessons I learned. I never forget how it felt to discover that the people I trusted most were capable of such calculated cruelty. I never forget the importance of choosing people who choose you back, consistently, and without reservation. Michael and I have been together for 2 years now, and he has never given me a single reason to doubt his commitment or his honesty. When he tells me he loves me, I believe him completely. When he makes promises, he keeps them. When he says he will be somewhere, he shows up. This is what healthy love looks like. Not the desperate, selfish obsession that Nathan called love, not the conditional affection that my family offered. Real love is steady, reliable, truthful. It does not require betrayal or deception. It does not demand that innocent people be sacrificed for the sake of passion. Sometimes people ask me if I regret sending that wedding gift, if I think I went too far in my quest for justice. The answer is always no. I regret nothing about standing up for myself, about refusing to let them rewrite history, about ensuring that the truth survived their attempts to bury it. Nathan and Sophie made their choices over and over again for months. They chose each other over me, chose deception over honesty, chose their own desires over everyone else's well-being. The consequences of those choices were not my responsibility. They were the natural result of their own actions. I simply made sure those consequences could not be avoided or minimized. If that makes me vindictive, then I am comfortable being vindictive. If that makes me unforgiving, then I am proud to be unforgiving. Some behaviors deserve consequences, and some people deserve to face the truth about who they really are. I have built a beautiful life in the aftermath of that betrayal. I have a career I love, friends who value me, a partner who cherishes me, and most importantly, a deep sense of self-respect that no one can take away from me. Nathan proposed to me and then married my sister, thinking he could erase me from his story. Instead, he freed me to write a better story entirely. Sophie thought she could steal my life and make it her own. Instead, she lost her sister and gained a cheating husband who left her as broken as he had left me. In the end, the truth really did find a way. It found its way onto that giant screen in front of 300 wedding guests. It found its way into divorce papers and custody battles and therapy sessions. It found its way into my new life, where honesty and loyalty are not just pretty words but fundamental requirements. The wedding dress still hangs in my closet, but it no longer represents loss. Now it represents possibility, hope, and the future I am still building with someone who actually deserves to see me in it. And sometimes, late at night when I am lying next to Michael and listening to his steady breathing, I think about that moment in the coffee shop when Nathan destroyed my world with his cowardice and lies. I think about how I could never have imagined then that his betrayal would be the beginning of my real life, not the end of it. I think about how grateful I am that he showed me who he really was before I legally bound myself to him. And I think about the wedding gift that changed everything, not just for Nathan and Sophie, but for me. Because sometimes the most beautiful gift you can give yourself is the truth, even when it hurts. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to disappear quietly. And sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. It is simply living so well that your betrayers become irrelevant to your happiness. Nathan thought he was choosing between two women when he left me for Sophie. What he was really choosing was between truth and lies, between integrity and selfishness, between love and obsession. He chose poorly, and he lost everything that mattered in the process. I chose myself, chose truth, chose justice. And I won everything that actually matters: peace, self-respect, and a future built on solid ground instead of shifting sand. The man who proposed to me with tears in his eyes and promised me forever gave me something much more valuable than marriage in the end. He gave me the gift of knowing exactly who I am, and what I will never accept again. He gave me the gift of understanding the difference between love and possession, between loyalty and enabling, between forgiveness and stupidity. Most importantly, he gave me the gift of a clean slate, a chance to build something real with someone who actually deserves it. And for that, despite everything, I suppose I should thank him. But I would rather thank myself instead. For being strong enough to demand better, brave enough to stand up for myself, and wise enough to turn betrayal into liberation. The wedding gift I sent them was really a gift to every version of myself that comes after this moment. A promise that I will never again accept less than I deserve, never again stay silent when I should speak up, and never again let anyone erase me from my own story. That is a gift that keeps on giving, long after the shock and pain have faded into memory. That is a gift worth wrapping in truth and tied with a bow made of justice. That is a gift that changed not just their wedding day, but the entire trajectory of my life. And unlike their marriage, it was built to last forever. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal, revenge, and ultimate redemption, please subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads, and let us know in the comments what you would have done in my situation. Sometimes the truth is the most powerful weapon of all.